Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan. Now, as far as bucket list interviews go, safe to say Sir Alex Ferguson is unsurprisingly pretty high up my list. And while I await that miraculous chance to sit down with the man who made me fall in love with football, today's guest is probably the next best thing. Mike Phelan has spent decades at the heart of Manchester United as a title-winning player, trusted lieutenant to Sir Alex, and later as part of a team trying to steer the club through its modern-day challenges. And today he joins me on Sports Minutes to talk legacy, leadership, and what makes Manchester United, well, Manchester United. Mike, welcome to the show and welcome to Singapore. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. A little bit tired from my journey, but yeah, I'm all good.
I'm excited to have you. Thank you for making time despite the jet lag. What brings you to the Lion City?
Well, what brings me here is the fact that I like Singapore, one, and also to do a little bit of work with the local football community and do some coaching and pass on a little bit of my knowledge and experience to up-and-coming players, but also up-and-coming coaches.
Fantastic. I think this part of the world is quite lucky to have someone of your stature. Before starting recording, I mentioned I'm going to talk to you about three managers, Sir Alex Ferguson, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Ruben Amorim. I have to start with the boss, Sir Alex Ferguson. But before that, you spent over 2 decades at United in different roles. What does the club mean to you?
Well, the interesting part of it is playing football is the best. So I had a great opportunity when I left Norwich City Football Club to sign for Manchester United, which is my area, Northwest. So to play there was a sort of a dream come true because you hear about everything. I wasn't a Man United fan, but it was the size of the club, the history of the club, and people always talk about, the international recognition of Manchester United. So when you get the opportunity, you don't turn it down. I had 5 fantastic years as a player. 5 fantastic years, won everything, lived my dreams, and all the medals are locked away back home. But then obviously you come to an age where you want to move into coaching, or I did. I had a fascination with coaching. Left Manchester United, went on a bit more of a journey, early part of my coaching career, and then found myself back there under Sir Alex Ferguson again, which was pretty unusual. But then I had the longevity of Sir Alex's time at Manchester United, so it gave me the opportunity to learn to be a coach and find out could I really do it. That's the main thing. And I got promoted. I got promoted year on year and ended up being first team coach with Sir Alex and then assistant manager. So yeah, I've played, I've coached, I've managed there. So they're all 3 are different, completely different things.
And you talk about signing for Manchester United and it being a dream come true all those years ago, and then going back as a coach. Which moment was more special for you?
Well, when you finish playing, you start to wonder what is the next step, because most footballers now probably play a little bit longer than when I was playing. 30 was probably the age when you was looking at retirement, and then can you go on and do other things? In my case, it was always about staying in the game. Now, that's easier said than done because you need to know a little bit more about how to do that. But given the opportunity, it was a case of going on that learning curve. You're no longer a player. You think like a player when you first start coaching, but then you realise there's little bits that players need, but then there's a little bit that players want as well. So I went on that journey, going and doing it at Manchester United. Well, I did it at Blackpool, Stockport. I did a little bit of spell back at Norwich because I'd played there before. And it was really an interesting time because you can win some and lose some. You can build. But United's a different place. It's a different animal. You go in there and the players are of a standard that they need encouraging, they need finer detail, and they're winners. They're winners. So you go into a completely different mentality and you provide for them and make sure the opportunity is there for them to show their skills.
You say they're winners. Well, they used to be at least. It's a bit painful being a Manchester United fan these days, but we'll talk about that in a short while. Firstly, zooming in on Sir Alex Ferguson. Like I mentioned, bucket list stuff for me, but you got to work with the man day in, day out. What was it like? Interesting.
I say that as I'm laughing, but it's every day is a different day. But it was really good from my point of view that I'd played there. I'd played there and understand the mentality of not just the manager, it was more of the club, the supporters, the international recognition of Manchester United, and what that meant to be part of that. And as a player, you're pretty selfish. You're looking at number one all the time, and then the team, and then building from there. But as a coach, you go in there, all eyes open, because now your team's different. There's a lot of different age groups, different coaches, different cultures. you know, and then you're starting to find a way which you own yourself, which is, who am I as a coach? What can I bring to the table every day? And ultimately with Sir Alex, when he offered me the coaching role, I made a foolish mistake and asked him how he wants me to coach. And he said, son, you're the coach, I'm the manager. You coach, I'll manage. Simple. And he gave me that. It was quite a great comment for me, because it gave me the opportunity to learn rather than be told what to do. And then the journey just kicks on. You become a coach, you do well, you move up the ranks a little bit, you get a bit more notoriety, the players respect you a lot more. And then you maybe have something to offer at a different level, which is probably the organisation side of things. So now you move from player, coach, where you're focusing on working with the manager, but working with the players. Now you go into the business end of it, which is management, you know, assistant manager, completely different role. Now you're focused on the football club as a whole. So the players, yes, the coaches that you're working with and around, but ultimately the business of Manchester United. So you're now in the higher echelons and decision-making situation. And to be honest, Sir Alex gave me that opportunity. He gave me a really open book, really. I could do radio, I could do a bit of TV, I could coach some of the players, or most of the players, the team, set that up, but ultimately manage the manager as well,
of course,
which is never easy when it's Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, you talk about Sir Alex Ferguson. He's written 2 books since he retired, I think 2 books, and he's obviously a beacon of leadership, right? What I want to ask you is, in terms of being a leader, you mentioned him giving you an open book, right? Was that his most strongest trait, to empower someone to go out there and do it, be it a coach or a player?
It was, in a way, on reflection, because when you're in it, it just seems to move on and on. You're never looking back, you're always looking forward. And he's a highly driven person, and he requires effort, and he encourages his staff to bring their best every day to challenge the players. It's as simple as that. But ultimately, on the management side, you had to challenge him as well. And that was to sort of, he has his way of doing things, he has his disciplines, he has his very, very unbelievable understanding and knowledge of the game. But ultimately, you have to prod and poke a little bit, because my job was not just to agree all the time, it was to solve problems, and also to bring slight issues sometimes in order to make him think a little bit more. And ultimately, he accepted me for that, which was great. He never told me that, but I was there long enough to have survived it, so I must have been doing something all right.
No, you must have, and you clearly made an impression on some of the squad players, because a few years later, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer called you back to be part of his staff when he became a manager. Do you recall the call Ole made to you?
I remember the day. I was working out in Australia for a little while. I was not full time in Australia. I was dipping in and out, and I'd come back for a Christmas with the family. And I was actually doing a coach education course in my local town of Burnley.
Okay.
At the local college there. And it was sort of 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. And I never looked at my phone the whole day. And it was only when we finished at 5, I turned my phone on and it was going nuts, with all the beep beeps and all the messages coming in. Contact me now, and where have you been, what are you doing, this type of stuff. And then I just made 2 calls. One was to Ollie, because I had the number, and then one was to Sir Alex. So Ollie just sort of mentioned that there's a possibility of going back in, caretaking, until something may develop. So he asked me would I be interested. And I said, yeah, why not? Why would I not be? It was a great first time round. I wanted to do it the second time round. And then the second call was more of an ear bashing, really, from Sir Alex, saying, where have you been all day? Been trying to get hold of you. You don't pick your phone up. You never speak to me or whatever. And then he sort of discussed that opportunity was there for real and would I want to do it. And I'm not sure whether it was a recommendation from Sir Alex or whether it was Ollie, but ultimately it happened. And it was different. That was a different journey.
I have to ask, because you say you made 2 phone calls, I understand that, speaking to Ole first and then Sir Alex. At some point, did the 3 of you sit down and have a discussion in terms of steadying the ship? Because it was rocky towards the time Ole took over.
Well, at the time, Sir Alex was in the background, really. He was obviously retired. He had massive interest still in the club. And I think it was just at the end of Mourinho's term. And it was important to talk to Ollie first, because Ollie was the one that was taking over the reins, sort of thing. And then after that, it was a case of, do we meet up? I'm sure Ollie must have had discussions with Sir Alex, must have done. But for me, it was more of, I'm going back into work for Ollie.
Okay.
So I tried to separate that, because I'd worked with a great man for so long. I understood his traits, the way he worked. But I knew Ollie as a coach because I was sort of head coach then when Ollie was sort of running the second team. So and I'd coached Ollie as well, funnily enough. I'm sounding old now, really, but giving away my age. But it all came together through that one phone call, and then it was a case of, well, how are we going to do it, what we're going to do? And it was incredible, really. The start of Ollie's career, it just was like liftoff. I mean, we took the team, we made one or two different changes. We put smiles back on people's faces around the club. The fans were really up for it. And I think we went on an unbelievable start, where we was undefeated for 12 games or something like that. And we went from nothing to something really rapid. And me and Ollie, I can remember talking with Ollie and thinking, what's wrong with this club? There's nothing wrong with it, it's great, this is easy. And then we hit a dip. We definitely hit a dip, and the players blew a gasket a little bit. Their levels of consistency dropped, and reality hit a little bit. But Ollie was terrific. He had a great understanding of the game, a great manner about him. He was so positive all the time, so positive, and different. It was just different. It was quite good actually to see how it was done.
Yep.
And how it needs to be done, and can we do it? And it was difficult.
I have to ask you this about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, though I hate to do comparison questions, but were there any shades of Sir Alex in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. Ollie understood the club and the way the club should operate and what it needs to be proud to be a Manchester United. Not just a football player, but an employee. So he had all that in abundance. And it was a case of bringing back that mentality of it means something to lots and lots of people that we express ourselves and we deliver. I wouldn't say deliver results all the time, because that's not a given.
Of course.
But deliver a level of performance and consistency that people want to be fans again. They want to be there and they want to be excited. And he had that. He had that in abundance, Ollie. And his level of education within the game was excellent. Excellent. He'd had a couple of jobs before that,
yep.
And he'd come through those hard times and those good times. So he knew how to manage a club. He definitely knew how to manage a club. He knew how to, definitely related to the players very, very well. Very, very well.
You talk about putting in a performance. We'll talk about this day and age and how difficult it is in a short while. But sticking with Ole, right? You talked about the high of the initial start, and then there was the dip. And then there was a sort of high again. I think players came through. You guys made it all the way to a Europa League final as well. Do you think that was the defining moment of Ole's tenure at Manchester United?
The Europa League final?
Yeah.
Well, if it was, then I don't quite understand it, because it went to penalties and a goalkeeper missed a penalty. So I think, what was it, 11-10 or 12-11? I can't remember.
Something like that, yes.
It just seemed to be a long night. It went on forever and ever. But ultimately, I think you judged on performances and you judged on results. But Ollie had a good grip of the environment. The players liked him a lot. But I think reality hits sometimes, and this is on reflection. This is not something that you think about at the time, but on reflection, there's a moment when you know you need to change. And sometimes that change is either within the club or within the playing staff. And it needed both. It definitely needed both. And it was a case of how do we get to that point when those changes can be made. And there's a season still going on, so results matter. Yeah. And when I think we had a spell of 3 games, I think it was Liverpool, City and Watford. Yeah. And I'm not sure how all that sort of developed, but Liverpool and City at that moment in time were higher. Their levels were far higher than Manchester United. But all his tenureship up to then had been taking them from nothing to putting them in Europe, and certainly in the second season. And so everything was building. But then you get a little bit of noise and a little bit of chaos comes in from outside, and the club seemed to resort back to the same thing, which is the spotlights on the manager, the spotlights on the, where's it going from here? And we weren't at that time, and Ollie wasn't at that time to be able to change the staff and the players, because we were mid-season sort of thing. So there was no window of opportunity. So you have to survive that, and unfortunately that didn't happen.
Mike, you talk about chaos from the outside, right? I'm going to try and address the elephant in the room. When you say chaos from outside, are we talking about Cristiano Ronaldo's return?
No, we're talking about the whole... When you're at a club like Manchester United, there's always chaos. There's chaos inside and chaos. And it's great. I can live with chaos. I like chaos. Part of my life. When I've got 5 grandchildren, that's chaos. You know what I mean? If you can handle that, you can handle a football club. But chaos comes in for different things because there's agendas everywhere. There's media agenda, there's, supporter agendas.
Boardroom agendas.
That's natural. But if it grows and grows too much, somebody has to deal with that, and I think then that's the strength of a football club when it comes together. And I can reflect a little bit on the Manchester United situation when we were winning. Nothing from the outside came in.
Okay.
It was always there. It was our place. It was solid. It was safe. And it was all about performing and winning. Once you get little openings from the outside coming in, then everything seems to be blown out of all proportion. There's a story here, and you guys live off, rumours and stories, and it can be but I think also the way things are now with telephones and, the interaction now online, social media, it's massive. And one thing just sparks another thing, and it's hard to control that sometimes. And I think the chaos comes because performances are not good and everybody can do it better.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it better. Fans can do it better. Media people can do it better. And it just builds to the point where something cracks.
Yeah.
And Manchester United, as much as it can build and build and build, there are moments where it can crack. And I think it's going through that phase now. And it needs addressing. But it's chaos is just round the corner. I have a great saying. Don't go looking for trouble because trouble's just round the corner.
Yeah.
And that's life. So that's always been my motto, really. But Manchester United is challenging. It's definitely challenging because everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody loves it and everybody hates it. It's just the way it is.
It's Manchester United,
yeah,
right? Mike, there's so much to unpack in terms of that chaos conversation. I don't know where to start, but I'm going to ask you this. There are many of the former players that you possibly played with or managed while assistant manager for Sir Alex who are now on media, on Sky Sports, on BBC, slamming the club. Where do you stand on that in terms of their support for the club? Should they be so outrightly negative for the clicks?
Well, quite a few different answers to that, really.
Give me your best one.
The media, the way it works now, it seems to be a self-perpetuating thing. So if you're an individual, it's about the clicks. So how can you generate more clicks? And I'm at an age now where what does that all mean? I mean, it's there, but I don't quite understand. But you can be controversial far easier now because it creates debate, it creates clicks, like you say, and it creates more and more viewers. And sometimes now, outside of the game, players are brands in themselves now, and so are ex-players now.
Yep.
They're their own brands. So there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of money in that side of things, and everybody relates to their audience. So clicks matter.
Yeah.
And those clicks can create wealth. And not that some of these players need any more wealth, they've got plenty of it. But it's just the way the world works. Controversy comes with performance. So yeah, if you're in the media and you're not playing well, you're not performing consistently, and there's one or two issues that you've created yourself, that's going to bring attention to it, and you can't hide behind that. You have to say it how it is. I've done a few watching of games now and again, not a lot, but when I watch, you can find holes in everything. Yeah. But you have to be true. You can't say something's good when your audience knows that is not good enough. So you have to be honest in that way. But there's a difference between talking about the game you're seeing right now and then talking about the other issues around the game. Yeah. Two different contexts. Yeah. And a lot of it can become personal now. Yeah. Really sensitive now and personal. And I think that's something that I don't like about the game. I really don't like that. I think you can judge people as they perform and they train, and some players go out of their way to make headlines for different reasons. Of course. But that's life. Yeah. But ultimately, if you're in the game to comment on the game or to be a commentator on a match, be a commentator on the match. A lot of the time we get asked questions, what about this, what about that, what about that? And you never know whether it's actually true or whether it's a rumour, but they want the comment, and that becomes the next rumour. Yeah. You know how it works. I mean, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but it's a difficult environment now to manage that one because people are sensitive. Human nature tells you it's sensitive when it comes to criticism. But I always find it's easier to criticise people rather than look and be more constructive. I think constructive criticism is acceptable.
Yeah.
But when it's just personal or it goes beyond, I think that's a bit out of order.
Absolutely, and I feel like social media almost blurs that grey line. You talk about it being such a difficult problem to overcome, modern-day football, modern-day Manchester United, right? How big a task then does Ruben Amorim have? Because he took over mid-season, now he has this full pre-season. How difficult a task is it going to be to try and steer the ship in the right direction at least? Again,
it's difficult in one way, but it's probably difficult in a good way as well, because the way the season went and the way it collapsed, I mean, it wasn't a great season. Consistency wasn't there. I mean, they broke all records as a group of players, but as a club and as a staff, you don't want that hanging around your neck all the time, you know. So it should be a starting point to go forward. I mean, any lower and they're in the next division below. Right. You know, and luckily for them, you know, it's...
there were three teams that were worse.
Yes, yeah, it turned out that way. And I was saying to somebody the other day, you know, you wouldn't want to have been in that final 3-4 games needing 3 wins to stay up.
Yeah.
It probably could have been tricky, even for Manchester United, because they had the Europa League final and everything was pushing towards that. Win that, you're in the Champions League. And ultimately that didn't happen. So... from a positive point of view, they can only go forward. From a negative point of view, they need to be very, very careful because now they've just got the Premier League to play for. Obviously, the domestic cups, no Europe, and they have to plan really, really well this season because it will be a short season if they don't start well.
Mike, I want to zoom in on a point you made earlier. When you were working with Sir Alex, you used to challenge him.
Yeah.
He liked being challenged, right? Ruben Amorim sticks to his guns with this formation he likes to play. If you were part of the coaching staff, would you challenge him to do something a bit differently?
I'd challenge him from the point of view of, is it working? Is there signs of improvement? Probably challenge also the fact that traditionally who are Manchester United, you know, and the system that the new manager, and that's a credit to him, he has his beliefs and he has his understanding of the game, and he wants to play a certain way. But the Premier League's a monster. It is a monster. And it's a game that changes all the time during the game. Now, if you're dominant and you have a system that you want to play and you're dominant, then I think that works. But when you're not dominating in a system you want to play, you have to have a bit of flexibility because it is challenging. You know, every team in the Premier League has an opportunity now to win football matches. It's not like in the old days where there was maybe 6 teams that could be really competitive and then there's another little group of teams. It's very, very close now. So every team will challenge you in a different way. And on the day, they can beat anybody. Any team can beat anybody. Now, if you want to stay in one system all the time, you better be really good at it. Otherwise, you need to analyse it and change and be flexible, but also have the players aware of that flexibility as well.
And you talk about needing particular players for a certain system that Ruben wants to play, right? Is he then putting too much pressure on Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe to get him who he needs?
A manager's a manager, you know, a head coach, whatever they're called now. They always want the tools to work with. But I think when you come into a football club, you've done a bit of homework on the tools that are already there. And then he's been brought in. I think there was talk that he didn't want to come in January. Whether that's right, I don't know. But he wants to start from afresh at the start of the season. But ultimately, he's gone in and he's set the tone. He's set the way he wants to play. That hasn't worked. So the interesting bit now is when he's on holiday, sitting on his sunbed round a pool, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Are you going to still stick with that? And can you develop something with that? Because what you've got right now is what you've got.
Yeah.
Because there's only been Cunha, is it?
Cunha, that's what.
Cunha has been added to it.
And Buemo might join?
Yeah, might. But it's a case of right now he's got the same group of players with one added.
Yeah.
Is that drastically going to change the dynamic of the team? He's probably thinking, I need some more. How many more? Their discussions higher up as to whether that can be provided. The interesting part of Manchester United is there's owners and then there's shareholders.
Yes.
Now, where do you put the Glazers are the owners? Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a share in the club. Okay, I don't know what that role is, what that mix is, but ultimately, those two have to get it right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sometimes difficult when there's not just one person or one
decision maker
group of people making decisions. There's now, I don't know, 2, there may be 3, there may be 4. So it's a real, well, it could be a dilemma in a way to actually work through that and to see how that comes about. But there's still plenty of time to get things done. Yeah. But they've still got to do it through the transfer window and the players that they've got. Can they move them on? Because a lot of the talk has been about how that's important to do before they can do the other.
Of course.
Now it's easier to get players in.
Yeah.
It's harder to get players out.
Yeah.
In my view, anyway.
You talk about getting players out. I want to zoom in on one particular player, Marcus Rashford, who seems to be sidelined under Ruben Amorim. One of my favourite Manchester United players in recent times, quite honestly, but it's a bit sad to see what's gone wrong with him. If you were part of the coaching staff, would you put your hand around his shoulder or would you sort of take him to task as Ruben has?
I think a bit of both. I've learnt from the master when to put an arm round and when to, just look him right in the eyes and tell him the truth. Marcus has probably come from such a development stage and hit the ground and then gone on to perform well and sort of expect them to fly, expect them to really... But he's hit a bit of a barrier. So now there'll be reasons for that, but internally, externally maybe. I don't know. I'm not in contact with Marcus. But at the time, I would say, get back to basics, really knuckle down, avoid anything, that chaos, avoid it, Very difficult for a young footballer, but try and avoid all the noise and just focus on what you're good at. And that is just getting the basics right, building from there, getting your rhythm again, do all the things that got you to that point in the first place and then take it on a bit more. That's the important thing, the next level. Because the challenge for Marcus or any player at United is what you've done in one season, you've got to do better the next, and you've got to do better the next, and you've got to do better the next in order to be a truly good Manchester United player. And that's the dilemma. He's gone out on loan, done reasonably well, I think. Yeah. But now, does he stay, does he go? That's going to be a major decision, I would have thought, on his part and also on the football club's part.
Absolutely. And this is my final question in terms of Manchester United. You talk about all eyes are watching Manchester United. In this part of the world, in Singapore, Manchester United, alongside Liverpool, are probably the most well-supported club. In terms of Manchester United fans, me included, there seems to be an expectation that our club should be winning. Is that expectation misplaced? Should there be a realignment in terms of the reality of the situation?
I think it's sort of split. I may be wrong there from a perspective of as a football club. I think there's always going to be people that demand more, and so they should. It's Manchester United, and that's from everybody working within that football club, but also the expectation outside the football club. Then there's the realisation that it's not where it was, or it's not where it should be. And I think there's kind of a acceptance. They don't want that. Nobody does. They don't want to fall from grace too far and then have to start again because the foundations are there. There's some good people at Manchester United. I've not been there for a number of years now. I've not been down to the ground, but there's some good people there. I know that the new group of people have changed it. The dynamics change with some of the workers there and everything, and that's something that I don't know. Maybe the organisation had to do, but ultimately, have they loosened the grip on the good people there? Do you know what I mean? But for me, it's going to be a long road back. They still seem to be wealthy enough to push a few buttons, but ultimately, you've got to be resilient. You've got to score those major points, not just in performance, but in business, in the business side of it. And I still think right now they're probably paying too high a price for what they need. But they've put themselves in that position. Yeah,
it's the Manchester United tax. You talk about it being a long road back. I hope there'll be some happy stops along the way, at least, to keep the United fans believing. Mike, we've spent a long time talking about Manchester United. Let's round it off by talking about Mike Phelan. You've set up a coaching clinic in terms of giving back to kids. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I've always been interested. I mean, everywhere I've gone and travelled, it's been under the banner of Manchester United, and I've been massively fortunate to be able to talk about them and the rest of my career. But I've always maintained that I started at the bottom. I started at grassroots level. I played in a team when I was 9 years of age, 10 boys, 1 girl. Played street football. And then it developed into a little bit of, one of the players' fathers starts a team and playing against local teams, and it grows and grows and grows, and then school. So I just thought about, do I really want to put my heart into that? And I do. So I set up about 5 years ago MP coaching, and it's been a learning curve coming out of the top end of the game, going into the grassroots environment. So now it's forming itself into education as well as sport. And I like the idea of MP coaching sitting in the sporting environment. So we can provide, and we are providing to numerous education authorities, where we can take MP coaching to grassroots level, invite a lot of mums and dads who are coaching because their kids play at some grassroots club all over the world. And we say, right, we're here for a period of time, maybe a couple of hours in the evening, maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe a week. And it's taking us around the world, and we get people in. It's a very open environment. We discuss, they watch, they contribute, they're around the area. It's not like they're sitting miles away, they're actually there, in there. And we chat, and we talk football, which I find, it isn't done enough now, And I'm learning that kids learn differently now. We talk about multimedia and telephones, and everything is clipped now. It's not games, it's more snippets. So I'm getting my head around that, even at my ripe old age of 62. And all my my chats now are based around kids of the future rather than the players that I used to play with. So even the likes of Scholes, Beckham, Giggs, they're starting to fade out a little bit now because there's others coming underneath. Yeah. I used to talk about Maradona and these types of things. Kids have to Google that now. Yeah. Who are they? So I've got to get up and relative to the moment. Yeah. But MP coaching is sport based. I've got plenty of people in there that can deliver coaching sessions to kids at grassroots level, all age groups, and also to the coach educators. And it's really working well. And that's why we're out here in Singapore for a couple of sessions. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've got a couple of guys with me. And you know what it's like forming a company. You've got to get the right content. It's mad, It's, again, they do what they do and I do what I do. But ultimately it's getting down to the basics of what is it about, what is the fun aspect of it, and what is the bits that really matter. It's not just turn up, be a footballer. I'm a Ronaldo. Of course. I want to be a Rooney. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, but you're 7 years of age, or you're 10 years of age, or you're 15. Yeah. Your expectation might be a little bit high, but sport is educational, and that's where I'm coming from.
Mike, I can see the gleam in your eye when you talk about this MP coaching project. It clearly means so much to you to give back to grassroots. But I have to ask you this. Is this done then for Mike Phelan, the coach?
No, it's never done. It's never done. This is something I should have set up whilst I was still at that level, but it's just never had the time, 24/7. Manchester United, like I say, it's just never ending. But it's only afterwards you realise that there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more going on. Yeah. And now I'm in charge of my own destiny a little bit. So it's really nice. I've got a diary now, and I've got, I can say yes and no to certain things, which is beautiful. And Man United's given me that opportunity to do it. But it's just a case now of let's see, because the games, you look at the game now and people who are getting employed in the game, a lot of good people out there that don't work within the sport. So I've just concentrated on maybe a little fallback. If there's opportunity, then it's open to discussion, but you can never say never. But there are a lot of young coaches out there now.
Absolutely.
A lot of young coaches that might just require a bit more of a senior head around them, sort of thing.
So does that mean if you were to consider an opportunity, you might even consider coming to this part of the world?
Listen, my bones don't like the cold anymore. And when I've lived in Manchester, around Manchester all my life, I can feel it in my bones, the cold weather and the rain. So a nice bit of warm climate never hurt anybody.
Absolutely. He loves the tropical weather. He spent 10 days in Thailand. Here you are sitting in Singapore. Singapore would welcome you to our shows. Mike, just before I let you go, a round of quick fire just to round things off. I know you said you're 62, but I'm going to test your reflexes with this one, okay?
Okay.
Favorite match you've ever been involved in at United, either as a player or coach?
Cup Winners' Cup final as a player, beating Barcelona. I know the game's over 90 minutes, but it was a hell of a week.
Most underrated player you coached?
For me, Nani. Nani had fantastic ability, talent, and it was just trying to squeeze more and more out of him. There's another one as well, Anderson, Brazilian boy. I think, Brazilian mentality, but he had everything there. It was just trying to get him into the cultural side of things, that the demand is every day, not just once a week.
When you say Nani, I think about that red card against Real Madrid. You were absolutely
I remember
robbed.
it very
I was
well,
in Old Trafford for
Was you
that
there?
game, actually, and I'm still not over it,
Yeah.
10, 12 years on.
No, it changed the game.
Which current United player would thrive under Sir Alex Ferguson?
Under Sir Alex Ferguson, probably Yoro.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just from the fact that he's got the physical capability.
Yeah.
He's young, he's athletic, and I think he would probably be able to put up with Sir Alex's methods. Yeah.
No, I love that, because I think the easy answer would have been Bruno, but you actually showed your nous by telling us it's Euro. Thank you for that. One word to describe Sir Alex Ferguson.
Interesting.
Okay. Biggest misconception about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Biggest misconception, that he was soft. I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Thank you for debunking that. One manager today you admire most and why?
Probably not managers in England. It's more probably overseas. I like Ancelotti. I've always liked Ancelotti. I thought he could have possibly been a Manchester United manager at one point. But I just like the way he understands the game, the way he respects the teams, the way he respects the players. He just seems to have that something that you can't put your finger on, but he's not like anybody else. And I think that's why he's been coaching and managing for years and being the most successful guy ever.
And even got into international management now,
Yeah,
right?
now he's taking on the real job now.
Absolutely. Final question. If you had to choose one former player to resurrect Manchester United today, who would it be?
Well, there's two, Roy Keane and Paul Scholes.
Oof. Wow.
Two different players, two different attitudes, but ultimately winners.
Absolutely. From the glory days under Sir Alex Ferguson to the challenges of the modern game, Mike Phelan has seen it all from the inside. His story is not just about football, but about evolution, resilience, and leadership at the highest level. Thank you for speaking to Sports Minutes, Mike.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.